Okay, let's just forget everything you think you know about, old music.
Yeah.
We're talking about an era that didn't just write some hit songs, it completely tore up the rule book on how music is made, how it's recorded, and how we listen to it.
We're talking about classic rock.
We are.
And today, we're going to cut right through the nostalgia and just give you the facts. We want to break down the essential pieces, the tech, the musical ideas, the culture that made these songs from 50 years ago still feel so present
You still hear them everywhere.
all the time. In movies, on the radio, everywhere.
Okay, so where do we start? The beginning seems like a good spot. We're talking what, the mid
The
1960s?
mid-60s, exactly. And you have to understand, before this, pop music was mostly like short 3-minute singles.
Right, songs for dancing, love songs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, simple stuff. But this era was a fusion point. It was a huge moment of change.
What was fusing together?
Well, you had the raw energy of early American rock and roll, that sort of youth rebellion, but then it got blended with something much older and deeper.
The blues.
The African-American blues tradition. And that combination, that mix of energy and history, gave the music its weight, its power.
And that blend made bands immediately change how they worked. They started moving away from those simple pop songs on purpose.
They did. They started thinking bigger, not just singles, but whole albums. They were experimenting with longer songs, more complicated music.
And what was the sound that defined all this, if you had to pick one thing?
Oh, that's easy. Volume. The sound was defined by electric guitars using heavy distortion.
And let's be clear, distortion isn't just like random noise.
No, it's a tool. It's an effect. You take the clean guitar sound and you just push it. You saturate it until it gets thick and powerful. It's what makes the sound feel so huge.
And that huge sound immediately got connected with, a feeling of rebellion, creative freedom.
Absolutely. It was loud, it was new, and it grabbed the attention of young people all over the world. It was basically a signal that this was their music, not their parents' music.
It was a line in the sand.
A very loud line in the sand. I mean, think about the impact of that. When you crank up the volume and distortion that much, the guitar stops being just another instrument.
It becomes the center of everything.
It becomes this massive, almost orchestral force. And that decision, just to embrace being loud, that might have been the single biggest choice they made.
Which is a perfect segue to the instrument itself,
The
the electric guitar.
star of the show.
It's really not an exaggeration to say it's the most important instrument in this whole genre. Musicians treated it like a science experiment.
That's a great way to put it. They weren't just playing notes, they were engineering new sounds. And think about where they were playing.
Not small clubs anymore.
Massive stadiums. So to fill a space that big, you needed huge amplifiers. And they would push those amps to their absolute physical limits.
And here's the wild part. The magic actually happened at those limits.
It did. When you pushed an amp too far, it didn't just get louder. The sound started to break up, creating these really cool harmonics and making the notes last longer.
And they learned to control that, to use what was technically a failure-like feedback as part of the music.
Exactly. And that skill, that control, became how you measured a guitarist's greatness. The legends became legends because of their long improvised solos.
Yeah, these weren't just for show.
No, they were these incredible displays of technical skill and, pure emotion.
And almost every one of those famous songs is built around one key thing.
The riff.
The guitar riff, that short, catchy, repeating part that just hooks you in. It's the engine of the song.
It is. It's the core idea. And then they enhanced that with all sorts of new inventions. Pedals and effects that could totally change the guitar's sound instantly.
Right, so you could be playing a soft, clean melody.
And then stomp on a pedal, and suddenly your sound is huge and fuzzy and aggressive. Things like the wah pedal or the fuzz box, they were all becoming standard tools that gave them a whole new set of colors to paint with.
But all this new technology, all this experimentation, it was still connected to the past, right? You mentioned the blues.
It's the DNA. It's all in there. Rock artists didn't invent these song structures. They basically took the soulful melodies and heavy rhythms of the blues.
And just made them way faster and a whole lot louder.
A whole lot louder. They used a framework called the 12-bar blues. It's a specific chord progression that repeats.
It's super reliable.
Very reliable. Gives the song a solid foundation, so even when the guitars are going wild, you feel like you know where the music is heading.
And the lyrics, too, they borrowed from that tradition.
A lot of them did. They wrote about personal struggles, problems in society, just everyday life. It connects directly back to what the original blues artists were singing about.
Okay, so that desire for bigger stories and more complex music. It couldn't really fit into a 3-minute song anymore.
Exactly. Which brings us to another huge artistic leap for the era, the concept album.
So this is where a record isn't just a collection of random songs.
Right. The whole album is one single piece of art. All the songs are connected by a central idea, a theme, or even a continuous story.
And they were tackling some pretty big themes.
Oh, massive themes. Philosophy, space travel, politics, mythology.
And that changed how you listen to music. You didn't just put on a song.
No, it was a ritual. You'd sit down, maybe with friends, and you would play the entire record, from the first track on side A to the last track on side B. You had to get the full story.
And the album cover was part of that story.
A huge part. That 12-inch sleeve was a canvas. The art reflected the music's themes. The packaging itself became a piece of art you'd want to own and study.
This format also gave them freedom to experiment with instruments, right? It wasn't just guitar, bass, and drums anymore.
Complete freedom. Suddenly you're hearing things you'd never expect on a rock record. Synthesizers, string orchestras, sound effects, spoken word. Anything was possible.
But even with all that complexity, you still need a solid foundation.
You absolutely do. And that's the rhythm section. The engine room,
The drums and the bass.
the drums are the heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
They provide that driving force. And the drummers from this era were famous for their power and their stamina. They had to be.
Playing these long, epic songs in stadiums, you'd have to be an athlete.
For sure. And they used these enormous drum kits, not just for show, but to create a bigger, more dynamic sound.
And the rhythm section, that's the term for the drummer and the bass player working together.
Yes, and that interaction is so important. They have to be locked in, creating that solid groove for everyone else to build on.
So the guitarist might be the flashy hero.
But the rhythm section is the foundation holding the whole thing up. If the bass and drums aren't tight, the whole song just falls apart, no matter how good the guitar riff is.
That's what makes you tap your foot.
That's the groove.
So to make these really complex songs, the bands needed to be more than just good musicians.
They had to be innovators in the studio. I mean,
Yeah.
the 1970s saw these incredible breakthroughs in recording technology. The studio became a laboratory.
And the biggest one was probably multi-track recording.
Oh, without a doubt. Before that, you might have like 4 tracks to record the whole band at once. If one person messed up, everyone had to start over.
But multi-track changed that.
It changed everything. It meant you could record different instruments at different times on separate tracks and then layer them all together later.
So one person could, in theory, play 5 different guitar parts on the same song.
Exactly. Or stack up tons of vocal harmonies. It turned a recording from just capturing a live performance into building a sonic sculpture piece by piece.
And that made the job of the producer way more important.
Critical. The producer became like the director of a movie. They were the sonic architect, using effects like echo and reverb and tape loops to shape the final sound and make it feel massive.
Okay, so you've made this incredible sounding, detailed album. How do you get people to hear it?
That's where FM radio comes in. It was the perfect partner for this new music.
Why FM specifically?
2 reasons. First, the sound quality. FM had much higher fidelity than AM radio.
Yeah.
You could actually hear all the details and layers they were putting on the records.
And the second reason?
The format. AM radio is all about short, top 40 singles. But FM stations started focusing on playing the longer album tracks.
Ah, so they would play the 7-minute epic song.
Yes. And the DJs often had the freedom to play whatever they wanted. That was a huge deal for new experimental bands who didn't have a hit single. It's how a ton of people discovered their favorite music.
So we've got the sound, the tech, the structure, but what about the lyrics, the words themselves?
The lyrics took a huge leap forward. Songwriters went way beyond just love songs. They were writing about history, literature, social change, really deep, complex ideas.
And that created a different kind of connection with the fans.
A much deeper one. And they would often print the lyrics right there on the album sleeve so you could read along and really think about the story they were telling.
And as the music got more ambitious, so did the concerts.
They had to. They moved out of theaters and into giant sports arenas that required a whole new level of production.
We're talking huge sound systems, crazy light shows.
Pyrotechnics, everything. The concert became a spectacle, an event.
And you can't play quiet, complicated music in a stadium.
You really can't. The music had to get bigger, simpler in some ways. They started writing these massive anthems, songs with huge, simple choruses that 50,000 people could all sing along to together.
And that became a huge part of the culture.
It was a massive social event for an entire generation.
So as the era went on, the sound just kept getting pushed further and further.
To the extremes, yeah. The
Yeah.
sound got even heavier, even louder. And that's when you see the birth of hard rock and then eventually heavy metal.
So they took all those elements, the distortion, the volume, the complex
And
songs.
just turned it all up to 11. Added faster rhythms, more powerful, almost operatic vocals, and often darker themes. It was the logical conclusion of where everything had been heading.
It's amazing how much the physical format, the vinyl record, shaped all of this.
It really is. That 12-inch disc encouraged you to listen to the album as a whole, just like the artists wanted.
And the big sleeve gave you all that art and all that information.
Right. That whole ritual, taking the record out, putting the needle down, sitting and listening, it created this really powerful bond between the listener and the music.
So when you boil it all down, classic rock wasn't just a style of music, it was a blueprint.
A blueprint for everything that came after. The ideas of creative freedom, of pushing technology, of telling complex stories, those are still the things that matter in music today.
Which is why the songs have lasted. The themes are universal.
That's why they're still everywhere.
Yeah.
They laid the groundwork for modern music by proving that if you mix history, technology, and a whole lot of volume, you can make something that lasts forever.
It was a huge turning point, really.
Yeah.
Driven by innovation, that powerful mix of blues and rebellion. If you want to understand how music is produced today, you really do have to start here.
Absolutely. We hope this helped connect some of those dots.